Regulated Industries Committee to order. Got a busy agenda today and not a whole lot of time. We got the room for an hour. So we're going to try to do as much as we can. I'm going to start with Senator Harbison. We have a Senate Resolution 619. If I could get you to present that to us from your seat,
Thank you,
Dean.
sir. I'll be as expeditious as I can. Thank you for the courtesy of hearing this. This is a request by our city council and members of our school board there in Muscogee County. And simply what they're trying to do is look for ways to discount expenses to the members of the community there. And apparently, if there's a one-source billing aspect of what they can do, they would translate into some pretty good savings for members of Columbus, Georgia, and Muscogee County. The way it is now, you may have 10 sites or 20 sites for that matter from the school board and or from the city, all members of the city are there, and they would be billed separately. So that would mean they would have the advantage of having a one-source billing with a greater volume, which would offer a greater discount. And this is what this is all about. Hopefully we can get it done, have hearings on it, and get input from the utilities that would be involved with it. I met this morning with some members of Georgia Power, and they had questions in the context of explaining what it would do, and they were sort of saying maybe there's some ways they can look at the, I'll let them speak for themselves, look at the discount aspect of it, which perhaps is possible, and that's what we have to make sure that the citizen of Muscogee County and the citizens of Muscogee and Columbus can really get some can get some benefit of the study committee there, float it out and work it out and get it done for next time around as it relates to passing a bill.
So your resolution is just to create a study committee to look into these issues, billing issues, to try to reach a resolution or compromise or streamline the process.
That's right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Any committee members have questions for Senator Harbison? I don't see anyone signed up to speak to it. I wouldn't have expected that since you're just studying it. And so I'm willing for us to take action on this if anybody has a motion. Motion do pass from Senator Lucas, and we're referencing LC 365707. Did I hear a second over here from Senator Brass? Any discussion on this resolution calling for the study committee? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you,
Thank
Dean.
you, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts on that, and we'll keep you posted as that gets moves down the process. Okay, the rest of our bills are House bills. I'm being pretty aggressive because we had about, I want to say 13 or 14 bills in the committee. I've put 6 of them on this agenda for today. The first one deals with solar technology, basically these, I don't know what they call them when they have fields full of solar panels out there, solar farms, I guess, something like that. We do have a little feedback on this. Representative Trey Kelly is going to present. Trey, you may use the podium or this witness chair, whatever suits you best. You're so tall, you probably want that podium over there.
I like to stand up if I can, Mr. Chairman.
We are intending to have hearings only on these. We've got pretty strict instructions from the majority leader who's boycotting this meeting apparently since House hadn't passed the budget yet. Did y'all pass it today?
We have it laying on our desk at a little after 10 o'clock this morning, I think a little before 10, and I think we're all looking forward to getting that thing done when we get back here on Thursday, and certainly appreciate y'all having me here today.
Back us up. I want to move as many House bills as we can, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to hear these bills but not take motion. Say that again, Senator Lucas.
I said, do they realize we got 10 days?
Ooh, that's pretty tight window, isn't it?
We know y'all are up for it.
Would have been a little better if we'd have got it by crossover as promised, but we're going to do our best on this side, and we're not going to slow down. legislative process on these bills. So tell us what you got there. HB 300.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm working off LC 550208S. And this is a measure that has evolved over a multi-year process, trying to provide some protections from landowners when they enter into lease agreements for solar power facilities. Chairman Dickey on our side in the Energy Utilities Telecommunications Committee, Mr. Chairman, he, as an ag chairman, he hated reference to solar farms. So he's conditioned me to call them solar power facilities. And it involves these solar power facility agreements that are entered into. And what we've seen across the country is looking for assurances that in 20 years when these agreements go to expire, that the landowners will have some protection from the grantees, that once the lease expires that they will remove their equipment and they'll return it to the condition it was before. And the best way we found to accomplish this, working with our Public Service Commission and specifically Commissioner Jason Shaw, was looking at a Texas model that essentially requires a financial assurance through a surety bond or other that would take into account the salvage value of the solar panels, and then just keep that bond so that when the leases expire, it'll be returned back to the land. Right now, it's not a problem. We've really seen these develop over the last 5-10 years. So most of them are 30-year contracts. So this is something that's kind of forward-looking for a couple decades.
Do most of these lease agreements have provisions in them where you are required to restore the land to its natural state at the conclusion of the project, we'll call it?
Some do, some don't, and there's kind of a inconsistency when you look at some of the local county ordinances that are required and county zoning that as it relates to solar panels and these solar power facilities. So the answer is some do and some don't, but we feel that it's important to have uniformity so that when these do terminate in 20 or 30 years or whenever, that they will be removed.
The Senate Research Office summary of this bill referenced a Solar Technology Trust Fund. Was that the original bill before this committee sub was created in the House?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. That's how I got involved with this. Was originally there was a thought of maybe doing this as a trust fund, similar like we do hazardous waste or others. But we know there's always a question as to whether you can dedicate to spending, and we're bumping right up on that 1% right now for dedicated spending. And so originally this started out as going to be a Ways and Means bill, and that's how I got involved in it. And it morphed as I got the language out there, got into conversations with Commissioner Shaw, and he said, "Man, I think and the industry and kind of said, look, there's a great Texas model that's working well in Texas that's not really increasing cost passed down ultimately to consumers." And so that was a model that we started working off of, taking the Texas model and making it even better.
So instead of having like a hazardous waste trust fund to clean these up at the expiration of the leases, you're going to require surety bonds that be posted. Is that being required in any of these lease agreements?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Some are. Okay. Some are, and these will only be for lease agreements that are entered into moving forward. Obviously, we can't do anything retroactively, and so this will be just for the agreements moving forward.
Well, I'm interested to see you get involved in this. I saw that Representative Tyler Paul Smith, he qualified and listed his profession as attorney farmer. Are you an attorney farmer also, or are you just an attorney?
I'm just a regular attorney, okay, Mr. Chairman, I barely get to that business because of everything we're doing up here.
Senator Lucas has a question. You're recognized, Senator.
If you're talking about starting the trust fund, how much is going to be added to the contract of the lease on putting money into the trust fund that you're talking about?
Thank you for that question, Senator. And that was one of the questions that we kind of got into early in the process, and we could never get to that. And that's why we moved away from a trust fund model to a situational by situational situation where there'll be a surety bond required to provide financial assurance. And we, beginning on line 113 down to 120, we kind of detail how to calculate what's necessary, because it'll be different for every project depending on whether it's 30 acres or 100 acres. And so that's why we moved away from a trust fund model to just a surety bond type situation.
Well, if you do a surety bond, I mean, what would the surety bond be? I mean, is it $500,000 based on the number of acres you have? $1 million? How are you gonna determine that?
So beginning on line 13, it says that it would be at least equal to the estimated cost of removing the solar power facilities, or essentially removing the panels from the landowner's property and restoring to the original conditions, minus the salvage value. So the cost will take you to remove, minus the salvage value of the panels, and there's pretty good salvage value in these, because they're taking them and they're recycling them. They take the glass, they take the metal, and they reuse them. So there's good salvage value in the panels, and then you add back in the portion of the value of the solar power facilities pledged to secure any outstanding debt. So that's the calculation. It'll vary on every project based on the value of the equipment, based on the size. And so that's why we wanted to just put a formula in versus a number we picked out of there.
I understand what you mean by salvage value, but just like metal goes up and down. If you talk about salvage value, what does the property owner get versus the salvage value that the companies get? They might make more money with salvage than they did originally putting up the solars.
I agree with you. That is part of this is there has to be some estimating, and that's why we asked for that determination to be made by independent third-party professional engineer to help us. It is an estimate as that technology continues to develop, and as there comes other uses for it. I mean, I know specifically because of my district, something that came out after, I didn't know about until after we'd already passed this through the House, but there's a new manufacturing facility come to my district and Senator Anna Vitardi's district, 600 jobs, and their whole purpose is they take glass, and glass specifically from solar panels, recycle them, and then we'll supply the recycled glass back to another solar panel maker that's located here in Georgia. And so as we continue to find new ways to use the metal and the glass, it will go up and down, and that's just the best we can do is get an estimate from an engineer.
Senator, again, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I look at these bonds that you're talking about putting up here, you know, some of these agreements I know right now already include a bond for the landowner. And so I'm looking at it, who are we making that payment to in case there's a default, or the 35 years from now, 40, you know, I've seen some of these contracts that go 45 years or up to 50. But when you have a failure of the facility's gone broke, whatever, and you got to clean it up, who's that payment made to?
It'd be to the landowner.
To the landowner, and the landowner would have to then contract for somebody to come in and do the removal and clean up.
Yes, sir.
And if the landowner decided not to,
then they could be in all kinds of, you know, based on the zoning for their local county or municipality, they could be subject to any ordinance violations.
so it's coming back to when you I've heard people talk about having a county or local government being bonded. They're being protected in the bond. Is that in this bill?
No, sir.
Okay.
We were specifically trying to address the issue with the landowner and the lessee, kind of with the understanding that local governments already have a way to deal with property that's in a non-conforming use, and not increasing the cost of these by asking it to be. Most landowners, I think, knowing that the funds are there and for the purpose, they'll want to try and come into compliance, and that was our rationale there.
Senator Summers, you're recognized for a question.
Representative Kelly, just on the bond, if the landowner if the owner of the solar facility sells out or changes hands, whatever, I'm assuming you've got it fixed where the bond is renewed, or is it stays with them, or they have to do it? What line is that on?
I know we do have that in there. Let's see. Starting line 139, we talk about if there is a change and replacement financial assurance on that. That's
Well, I'm
one-
saying, will they have to get a new bond, or would that be the continuous bond?
They would have to get they would have to provide that new bond at the time of that.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
Yes, sir.
Senator Albers, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Kelly, thank you for bringing this forward. I think as this industry continues to evolve rapidly, more questions may come up. I guess in thinking through this, how is this handled today if I were to lease a cell phone tower, as an example, on my property? Do we have this type of mechanism in the law today?
I'm not sure on that, Senator. I apologize. I can try to do some research on that for you, but I don't have a good answer for you on that today. I haven't looked into how we handle it with a cell tower.
Yeah, I'm just curious if this will be creating a one-off different from any way else that I might want to lease my property out. And are we creating a precedent, to be my only concern, even though I applaud the work you're doing on trying to address this issue?
I think, one thing that is distinguishable, I would say, is just because these are largely large acreages that take up. I mean, I know, there's always conversations about, where cell towers get located in communities. But when you're talking about the differentiation, I think, for these solar power facilities, you're talking, at least tens and tens of acres, a lot of times hundreds of acres that ultimately get developed. And that's why I would say if there is a variance in precedence, that's where I would say the justification would come from.
Thank you.
You have no question? Fine. Other questions by committee members? All right, I have Martha Revelo from the ACCG to speak to this. If you'll just have a seat, Representative, we'll let you close out here in a little bit. Would you mind speaking from that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Martha Ravello with ACCG. We, ACCG, have concerns. We have been talking to the author, but have concerns and questions that we would like to raise in committee. Solar developers typically lease land from property owners to operate solar farms or facilities. There are concerns from counties regarding the decommissioning process and the preemption on local authority regarding financial assurances, specifically landowner protection, but not protecting local governments. On line 94, you can see that it says that the landowner may request cleanup within 12 months of the occurrence of certain events. Essentially, if the landowner doesn't want to or fails for any reason to make a request of the cleanup within 12 months, then the business is off the hook ultimately. There's no rights given to the county or any other party to make this request. Enforcement. There's no provision for when or who would receive the bond if the terms of agreement are not met. If the landowner just leaves the land as it is and not making a request to clean up, he or she can potentially receive the bond, and choose not to clean anything up, which means they can get up. I haven't seen anything in the legislation that doesn't state that they can just get the bond and leave the land as is if the landowner decides to ask or request for the bond. And the value of the financial assurance, I know someone raised this question. It says that a third-party professional engineer determines the amount. Well, must we simply just accept this person's estimate on a yearly basis? Financial assurance is not due until the commencement of the commercial operation, but we obviously want it to be provided as the construction begins. So we just have questions unanswered, and we just hope to continue to work with the author, in addition with the committee members in the direction they like to go in. But just some general questions from some of our counties include, How did we go in a different direction from this trust fund? I know the author mentioned there were a lot of concerns on how to build this trust fund out. Yet we have some solutions for our counties to be protected through some sort of fund in which we have talked to the author about. And so we think this is a great start of a bill. This is a piece to a larger puzzle, but we need to have larger conversations on restoring all land, regardless of whether it's privately owned or not. Thank you.
Are you aware of any counties that have ordinances regulating these solar facilities now?
Yes. Elbert County, Madison County, Oglethorpe, to name a few.
Do they require decommissioning or remediation of the property?
They do.
And so what type of financial assurances do they have that
They-
that's going to be done?
Well, in this bill, it's preempting this level of bond,
So
so.
let me hear what's being preempted. What is being done now? Are counties requiring bonds or requiring financial assurances? How are you doing that in those counties?
So currently, the county makes sure that there's an ordinance in place to preempt through them having a bond. So what this will do is it will not allow them to have that assurance, that bond. So
Right, and
from
that's
this
what I'm asking. Do
situation,
they currently require those bonds? Are we changing the current way of doing business?
yes,
So counties do require bonds for the remediation?
Yes.
Before you can install a solar farm now?
correct.
Okay. Other questions from committee members? Senator Ginn?
Does that bond go to the county or does it go to the landowner where they have ordinances?
It goes to the county, but yeah, the ones that, there's ordinances in place. So it just, yeah.
Other questions? So are you opposed to the bill in its current form?
No, we are currently wanting to work with the author to make the bill
Well,
better.
you got about a week, because we've only got a very few more meetings. So work with them, and if you willing to talk to Representative Kelly, or where do you stand?
Mr. Chairman, I'd have to continue to try to work with them. I think one of the things we heard here is one reason why we're trying to do this is bring some uniformity to the process. And because you heard only a few handfuls of counties even have an ordinance to do this. And for me, again, I think the protection should go to the landowners. We know that our counties have a multitude of ways to make people come into compliance when their land's out of zoning conformity. And I feel like the tools they have in their toolbox today are sufficient. And that's why I feel like we're specifically trying to protect the landowner, because the counties already have a way to come after landowners who aren't complying. I'm willing to.
Let me get you to pull up to this witness one chair, the one closest to me. I want to make sure people watching online can hear you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm willing to continue engaging in that conversation. For me, I think philosophically, I just believe that the protection should go to the landowner, because they're not the ones who have code enforcement or others or fines that can be levied on non-conforming property. I feel like our counties have the tools that they need to do this. They do it with all kinds of different businesses, whether it's a solar power facility or whether it's a convenience store or whether it's the size of the house I build on my property. They have ways to make sure that land is being used. They remind us all the time that local zoning and land conformity is their specialty, and they don't want us touching it, except when they do now. And so that's kind of philosophically why I believe the protection ought to go to the landowner.
So you're trying to create some financial security to enable a landowner to restore their property if the contractor, lessee of the property doesn't do that.
That's correct.
Is the whole objective here to try to restore this land to farmland after it's been used for a solar facility?
If that's, ultimately the landowner will be able to use it for whatever they want to. A lot of these are taking place down in South Georgia, where that land right now is more valuable as a solar power facility than it is ag land. That may change based on our power mix and how things are going. And one thing we do know is Georgia continues to grow, and we're trying to feed more people. And as land becomes more valuable for agriculture, we do want them to have the protection in place to return that if that's what the market dictates at the time, or it may be for something else.
I got a question for you from Senator Kennedy. Senator Kennedy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative, for bringing this. This is something I've sort of wondered about for a while, wondering what this is going to look like 20 years from now, or whatever the lifespan of solar panels are. And I don't know technically how they're made and all of that. My question is, in the work that y'all have done in addressing the concern, is there anything about a solar panel that can be toxic or produce some kind of toxic situation on the land?
No, I appreciate that question. Solar panels are just glass and metal and some concrete that's around them. That's really all there is. There's no toxic. There's not any like liquid or anything that's going to leak out. It's just glass, metal, concrete.
Okay, and one of the questions, Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, I think I followed the model, the mathematical formula to get to what the bond amount should be. Based on what today's cost would be, do you have an idea of what the amount of the cost of the bond would be, and you can place it as to a solar facility of X size or however you wanted to compare it? And what I'm really wondering is, what is that cost, and how does that compare as an added cost to a facility that would be in effect in 25 versus one that went into effect in 2023?
I think there's some industry representatives who can speak more to the salvage value and the cost, and I'd love to have them come up and maybe help us go through that. And if I can use that question to jump back real quick to I think one of the questions you were asking, Mr. Chairman, about the amount of financial assurance that's being placed right now at the county level. I think there's a lot of inconsistency there, and I think sometimes just arbitrary numbers are being pulled out. And that's why we wanted to really focus on a formula versus an arbitrary number, so that we're not inflating a cost somewhere. We wanted it to be for what it's worth. The cost to take back to condition minus the salvage value plus any secured debts. And that's why we feel that's more important than just requiring a $2 million surety bond, because that's the number we agreed on. We felt like the formula was important. But I'd love to have some people come up and maybe help walk through the actual finance numbers there.
I have
So thank you
Miss
for the question.
Maggie Sasser signed up to speak. Angela, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
with us and sharing. Maggie, I didn't write down who your company is. I didn't get it. If you'll just identify yourself and who you're with and your views on this, you might be able to clear up some of these questions.
I hope I can. I'm Maggie Sasser, and I'm with Pine Gate Renewables. We are a utility-scale solar developer based out of North Carolina, but doing business in Georgia. And Georgia has been a really great place for us to do business, and we want to continue investing in this state. So I'm happy to answer questions, or I can kind of pick up on some of the conversations and maybe thread the needle on some of the things that I've heard.
That'd be good. If you could clarify anything that you've heard so far to start with, and we may have a few questions.
Absolutely, sure. So I just want to clarify a few different things. So this bill does two predominant things. The first thing it does is tells us as a solar developer what needs to be in our land lease with that landowner and what we're responsible for accomplishing to clean up or to deconstruct the site at the end of its useful life. We call that the decommissioning plan. Also, from a county perspective, a county can actually come in and say, we want you to do more than what the statute requires from a decommissioning plan perspective. So the counties still have jurisdiction and how the land might be restored based on the decommissioning plan. So that's kind of part one of the bill, is what are the activities we need to complete to deconstruct that project. The second part of the bill regarding is financial assurance, and that's what we've been talking about a lot today. So the bond, calculation of the bond we can go into, but I want to be clear that this bond is calculated and needs to go into effect when the facility starts operation, so year zero, year one. And then at the end of the lifetime of the facility, or when the facility ceases operation, ceases to produce electricity, then we, as the solar developer, as the land lessor, I always get lessee and lessor confused, lessor, we are responsible for decommissioning that asset. If we do not fulfill our responsibility activities to decommission that asset that occur in that contract with the landowner, then the landowner can pull down that bond to pay for the cost of remediation and cleaning up. So it is absolutely on us as a developer to be good stewards of the property. We take that responsibility pretty seriously. This bond situation is only in the very, 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 in fact, it's never happened before, but very unlikely case that we do not fulfill our obligations as the developer to decommission that asset. So that being said, the counties, what we wanted to do with the bonding kind of part of the bill is we don't want to be double bonded. If we're going to be bonded with the agreement with the landowner in compliance with the statute, which as Representative Kelly mentioned is only on a going forward basis. So all the bonds that the counties have asked us to do are still in place. Okay. But on a going forward basis, if we're going to be bonded based on the statute and compliance, we don't want the counties to be able to bond us for the same thing again. So if we have that bond with the landowner fulfilling the obligations of the statute, all that we're asking is that there's not a double financial assurance on us. So I'll pause there.
Well, that's interesting. So your industry wants to be regulated instead of just the free market deciding whether or not you're going to agree to decommission at the end of the lease?
It's a tough question, and one that I get often on this topic. And the way that I will respond is to say that we like consistency. You plan your business around consistency. Instead of having a patchwork kind of framework of regulation at the county level and having different expectations depending on whoever we're working with, we like to have a consistent set of expectations, or just a bare minimum, not a bare minimum, but a baseline amount of these obligations set forward in this bill. And then if the county asks us to do something above and beyond on anything related to these activities that does not include the bonding, we are happy to work with the county on those types of things.
And right today, without this legislation, do you always put a clause in your leases where you agree to restore the land?
My company does, yes.
Okay.
It is common, very extremely common business practice. It would be the exception if that does not exist across the industry.
So you're just standardizing what is an industry-wide practice already?
Yes.
And you're making sure through this that you're not double bonded.
Correct.
In your financial guarantees that you will honor the contract and do your decommissioning.
Yes.
Okay. Other questions? All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to let you hold off, Representative, on any close. We'll bring this back up at a future meeting. And if there are proposed changes that are acceptable to you, or if there are any others that have proposed ways to perfect your very excellent legislation, bring them to me in a timely manner.
Yes, sir.
Thank you
Mr.
for being
Chairman,
with me
appreciate
today.
y'all's time. Always enjoy the thoughtful questions and conversation. Look forward to seeing y'all soon.
Now we're moving on down our agenda. I was trying to make today a little bit of a healthcare day. Most of these bills have dealings with different healthcare aspects. House Bill 1264, Representative Stevens, you with me? There you are. Hey, Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. House Bill 1264, I'm working off of LC 540353. This bill is something that's been sorely needed for quite some time, especially for our nursing associations. Currently, this is an alternative. This bill is an alternative to discipline, if you will. It authorizes the Board of Nursing and the Composite Board of Professional Counselors, Social Workers, and Marriage and Family Therapists to establish an alternative program for discipline and monitoring whenever rehabilitation of an impaired healthcare worker comes to pass. Mr. Chairman, currently physicians, pharmacists, and dentists already have this alternative program. The nurses do not. We are one of 7 states that do not have a program of this type. There are no southern states that don't have this. Georgia's the last southern state. What this bill seeks to do is to proactively, whenever there is a problem, is to find these nurses and allow them to surrender and then surrender their license and then voluntarily go under a program of monitoring and rehab so that we can get these folks back into practice as soon as it's feasibly possible. That's essentially what the bill does, and I'll answer any questions if there are any.
I recognize Senator Albers for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Stevens, always great to see you. You always bring great legislation forward. I think this makes a whole lot of sense. Have you worked with the new leadership at the Composite Medical Board to get their feedback on this bill?
You know what? I'll have to ask the folks from the Nursing Association and others if they've worked with it. I'm taking this on behalf of the nursing associations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from committee members? All right. Who we got signed up here? I can't read your handwriting. We give it a try, Vice Chairman. What do you figure out there? This must be a doctor, not a nurse. They can't write.
Pington?
Anybody want to talk? Come on up. We'll figure and tell us who you are.
I get it right?
Close. Robin Pinchton.
All right, Robin.
Thank you, Chairman. Robin Pinchton, Director of Policy for United Advanced Practice Registered Nurses, and I'm just standing up to say we support this bill very much so.
Thank you.
This type of voluntary program not available now? I mean, what prevents a nurse from going and getting professional help on her own to, recover?
So what I've seen in my experience recently is addiction's a very difficult thing to break, and they need that support service, which they don't have right now. So this support service, a life preserver, if you will, is something that they can reach out to. I recently dealt with, I'm a nurse practitioner, I recently dealt with an LPN who was taking morphine from a hospice patient. It's colored blue in a syringe. She was pushing it out, replacing it with saline colored blue with food dye. And that caused so much disruption with my patients, increased pain, anxiety, and that type of thing. It's very sad that she did not have a program like this to go to when she was in trouble. Instead, she was just job hopping until she got caught. So our patients need it and the nurses need it.
So who's going to pay for it? This bill gives the authority to contract with a third party to establish these type of programs. So we're talking about the Board of Nursing or the original Board of Professional Counselors, Social Workers, and Therapists. Who's going to be paying for this
Richard, that's your question,
treatment?
I believe.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Richard Lamphere. I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia Nurses Association Peer Assistance Program that's been in operation since 1981, one of the first states in the country to have a specific program for nurses. So right now, the program is self-funded through nurses that are involved in our program, and one of the questions that was asked is this program available now? It's not available as an alternative to discipline program. When nurses come to our program, they still are being reported to the Board of Nursing, and they'll go down the disciplinary track, which causes hardship in their job market, being able to apply for various jobs, and also they're really more reluctant to come forward to go to disciplinary track versus an alternative to disciplinary track.
So they can come to you in this program if they have not yet been disciplined or suspended or whatever?
Correct. So some of the ways that nurses come to our program is on license renewal. Every 2 years when we renew our license, one of the questions asked is, have you been arrested for a DUI or sought treatment for alcohol or drug abuse? If you mark yes to that question, you're going to be pulled from the automatic renewal process from the Secretary of State's licensing board underneath the Board of Nursing, and they will be referred to our program. Hopefully we can get them prior to, once we're trying to get the word out about our program, and they can come to us beforehand, and then we can make sure the public is safe as we start to monitor the nurses, get them out of practice, make sure they've been evaluated for safe to practice, and get them back into practice.
And it looks like the nurse themselves is who is paying for the cost of the program?
Correct.
Okay. Well, why do you need a law to do this? Why can't you just do it now, offer the help?
Because we need the alternative to discipline language versus a disciplinary language.
Okay. So this would be a way to avoid discipline if they voluntarily engage in this program?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we're changing the disciplinary rules to go softer on people that are willing to go get help and be monitored.
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
That's all we got to the bottom of it. How about the questions here? Y'all got anything? All right, Senator Brass.
Do we do this in any other professions in healthcare?
Yes, doctors, dentists, veterinarians all have an alternative to to discipline program.
But nurses do not.
Nurses do not at this
Wow.
time.
Okay.
All right. All right, thank you so much. And Julianne McConnell, you're signed up to speak. That's to be our last speaker.
Okay, thank you. I'm here today representing what's called the Georgia Nursing Leadership Coalition, and we've actually been working on this legislation. We started last year, and when we did the mental health parity bill, and so we took that, and that language, when it was developed, we worked with the Board of Nursing and the Georgia Nursing GNA and their peer assistants when we used the language, and it was taken directly with Legislative Council out of the language that's used right now for the Composite Medical Board. So we stand, of course, in total support and ask you also, when it gets around at your next meeting, to support this bill. Thank you.
Any other questions from committee members? All right, got one question from Senator Kennedy. Who you addressing it to, Senator?
I guess whoever wants to answer it.
Ron, how about coming up here to witness chair one, and we'll have you available. If you can't answer it, we'll let you call a friend.
Sure. It's a real softball. So we've talked about this or heard about this in terms of nurses, but does this also apply to and provide for PAs, nurse practitioners, other people? Because it references a code section, but I don't know who all is under that code section.
It's exactly the same program that we copied for physicians and pharmacists. We have a program as well, dentists, where there may be even a mental health issue that might impair somebody, possibly even a physical issue that may be, I don't know, some sort of pen stroke or something where somebody may need therapy. But you would, again, it would eliminate that barrier before.
I'm with you. I'm totally in support of this. I'm just wondering who all can avail themselves of this service if we pass the law.
Nurses. Actually, there'll be 3 different sets of folks: the nurses, the professional counselors, social workers, and marriage and family counselors.
So would
therapists.
PAs, for example, not be able to avail themselves?
We could add them.
Okay.
That would probably be a very good amendment.
Senator Kennedy has a daughter who is a PA.
I like the idea.
She's not trouble that I know
No,
of,
no,
but
no,
you
I'm
know,
not suggesting that.
Never know what the future holds. Good gracious!
But
But I was thinking about PAs, nurse practitioners, other people that are similarly situated to nurses. It seems that we ought to make that. I think it's a great idea. Thank you for bringing this this bill.
As we get to the proper time, I would not have a problem at all in putting an amendment there.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. No further questions. Thank you for being with us today.
stay with me.
Mr. Chairman,
And, we'll
committee
be
members.
back with you when we're able to take action. All right, next bill, House Bill 1344, Representative Dempsey. Good to have you in our committee.
Thank
Go
you,
right
Mr.
ahead. You're
Chairman
welcome.
and members. This bill should look very familiar to y'all, actually. It's the exact same bill that Senator Kirkpatrick carried here. So you've heard all of it previously. It's this year's agency legislation for the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. It is mirror, as I said, of SB 336, which passed out of this committee unanimously a couple of weeks ago. The language is exactly the same. As a brief reminder, the bill has 4 main components. It is to clean up some of the things that have changed in this recent year. First, it amends the membership of the Behavioral Health Coordinating Council to help with quorum challenges by allowing appointed members to delegate proxies to attend these meetings. It also removes 2 reporting requirements that have become duplicative due to newer initiatives created in House Bill 1013 and implemented by DBHDD. And finally, it grants the Board of Professional Counselors, social workers, marriage and family therapists the authority to waive certain experience requirements for out-of-state applicants who are applying for licensure in Georgia. It cuts red tape, takes another step forward in increasing the number of behavioral health professionals across Georgia. It is the only version that survived crossover day, so Senator Kirkpatrick has agreed to carry this should it move forward.
She has mentioned to me she would like to carry your bill, but wondered if you were willing to add somebody from the Commissioner of Veteran Services to the delegate list that she
Now,
had done?
it is already there. That is in this, the version that you have in front of you. The substitute on the House floor did add that to it.
I
But it
always
is
did
for
too, yeah.
pardons and parole. And we're in discussion about that. We're getting an amendment, and I would say that by the time we do come back, hopefully, for another hearing, we can have sort of that amendment, and we'll get it to you before that, earlier.
Okay. And
for
we
you to
don't need
see.
a whole committee substitute if you're just adding that one name.
One.
Just have Sean Marie prepare a little amendment, talk one of our committee members into offering it, and we can get you ready to go.
We're-
Since we've already really heard this bill pretty thoroughly, I don't have anybody signed up to speak. Any committee members got questions? No, we can't, unless Gooch starts being a nice cop instead of the mean cop. Thank you for being with us. We'll let you know.
Thank y'all. Look forward to seeing y'all again soon.
House Bill 1096. Representative Washburn, if you'll please present to us.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to present House Bill 1096, which simply changes the code to allow the Secretary of State to engage a private company to assist with tracking CE requirements and CE courses, et cetera. As you know, we're trying to make it easier and to speed up the process of license renewal, and this is what this bill is designed to do. And so that is it in a nutshell. It allows them to do that and allows them to require licensees to allow their continuing education to be tracked. So that's it.
Does it apply to all the different professions that are licensed and require continuing education, or is it specific to one or another?
It is the ones that the Secretary of State supervises.
Okay, that's a bunch. Okay. Any questions? Senator Albers.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Representative Washburn, I certainly applaud your efforts to try and improve this process. I'm curious, why can't they just do this already? Why do we need to change the law?
I appreciate that question. It is my understanding that the law has to be changed to allow the Secretary of State's office to engage this a private company they will end up engaging, and they will invite proposals. The Secretary of State's office is in support of the legislation.
Mr. Chairman, I just wonder if anybody is here from the Secretary of State's office before we get done that could clarify that.
I don't see anybody from Secretary of State's office. Anybody want to?
Gabe's on his
Okay.
way, I heard him.
If lines 26 to 28, Senator Albers, I think is kind of the guts here where they're trying to get the ability to get off-premises software vendor where they can contract with a third party to help them run this tracking system.
Well, I understand. I just don't know if we need to change the law to do it.
Yeah,
so.
I don't either. Okay, no, that's fine. Legislative Council says the Attorney General's office said we would need this authorization for Secretary of State to contract with third-party vendor.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I
Yes,
don't want to
go
belabor
right
the
ahead.
point, but with everybody going to cloud systems, we're going to have to change the law about 4,000 times in the next 2 years. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So maybe we can get more clarification.
Any other questions? Good points, Senator. All right, thank you very much, Representative. Well, we're
Thank
making
you.
progress here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Clark, House Bill 1046.
Thank you, Chairman. I bring for you House Bill 1046. It's LC 339690S. And the bill simply, it just allows or authorizes APRNs and PAs to sign death certificates if the supervising physician delegates this authority through the APRN's protocol agreement or the PA's description. And then just to emphasize that the ability for the APRNs or PAs to sign the death certificates, it must be delegated by the supervising physician, where they would delegate it only to those they feel qualified. You also see in the bill, it makes some changes in specific areas where there is language with the signing of the death certificates, the physicians, and then it adds the APRNs and PAs. Also, We added the educational requirements for APRNs and PAs related to the execution of the death certificates. And then also in the bill, it has a selection box that's added for the death certificates to be checked off by the non-physicians. We also, when we're taking them through the House, we heard a lot of APRNs, PAs, and many funeral homes. They expressed a critical need for this legislation because of the backlog on death certificates in many areas. With that, I'll be glad to take any questions on the bill.
All right. Any questions? All right, we do have a few people signed up for you here. Robin, back. Come on up. Now we got your name.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's Robin Pinchton again, nurse practitioner. I'm here to answer questions and also just to explain that we are one of 10 states that do not sign death certificates in the country. There is a backlog, as was mentioned, and families are going through undue stress and grief because it's taking at times up to 90 days plus to get these signed. So I'll take any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions from committee members? All right. Okay, is it same bill? Yeah. Thank you, Juliana McConnell.
I'm just here again representing the Georgia Nursing Leadership Coalition, and we stand in support of the bill also. Thank you.
All right. Tim Davis, Georgia Nurses Association. I think you're on the right bill.
Recognize the hour is long chair. We support the bill.
All righty. Sheila Humberston.
Physician assistants, we support the bill. Happy to answer any questions.
All right.
Bonus points right there.
Wouldn't there usually be a doctor on the scene when somebody dies, though, that could sign a death certificate? Not always? Okay.
I will say where I think we see a lot of this is in hospice facilities, et cetera. And there, I think you've already passed, and Senator Williams can talk about an unintended death bill that passed this chamber already this year, where folks that are not being attended by a physician regularly. So we're seeing this problem a lot, particularly in, like I said, more long-term care facilities. I'm not speaking for them today, but hospice, et cetera, where there's not a physician at hand.
Senator Summers, you're recognized for a question.
Just a curious question. The people that sign these death certificates outside, they have permission from the doctor. There's no way they get in trouble. I mean, if the doctor doesn't like them, or I don't want to cause those folks any trouble. You know what I'm saying on death certificate? Is there a possibility?
So what I can tell you is I'm not sure that I understand your question, but I will say that we are already allowed to pronounce death. So we can already, the physician assist, and to me, that's kind of the most important piece, right? That you've recognized that someone is passed and no longer needs continued life-saving treatment. This is just filling out the legal paperwork about that death, including the cause.
All right.
Hope that
Senator
answered it.
Ginn has a question now. We got everybody.
Oh,
right.
no.
Yeah.
Would it be okay if we rename this bill to the Rick Williams Employment Act?
I would absolutely support that.
All right, thank you so much. Senator Williams, do you want to speak to it? Your name's been invoked. You probably about more familiar with this subject matter than most.
I'll be glad to give it some clarification. We've held about 15 meetings here at the Capitol with the Composite Medical Board, MAG, and representatives from other healthcare organizations, even the nurses, on death certificates. This has been a really pressing issue getting it done. For instance, one metro county, the medical examiner refuses to come to the scene to pronounce the death. The funeral homes are having to pick up someone who has passed away and take them 20 miles away to a hospital to have a physician pronounce them. Usually these people, these nurses, already have the diagnosis from the medical doctor, the attending physician, that what that patient is actually suffering from and what the terminal illness is going to be. So I've never known of any, my 54 years, I've never known of any lawsuit over a death certificate being signed with the wrong pronouncement of death, you can go back and amend a death certificate if a family, there's a little question, does the patient smoke? Sometimes doctors have inadvertently put yes and it should be no, and the family would get them to amend them, so there's no big deal.
Appreciate your expertise and insight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I got to back up when I see Gabe Sterling came in. I'm going to reverse course, and we're going back to House Bill 1096. You got thoughts on this one for us you want to share? I'm assuming that's why you came.
That's why I came, and I'm kind of wet.
All right.
Yeah, we would really appreciate y'all's consideration of this bill in favor, because essentially it's going to allow us to free up staff time. There's several things. It frees up staff time because right now we have to do manual audits of 1% to 3% of continuing education for all the boards, which takes those analysts' time away from actually issuing licenses. Secondarily, it'll be a protection for people from fraudulent education groups. The boards can certify every approved education group and curriculum that will then be on the platform that the licensees can then pick from. What's happening right now is you'll have fake ones out there. They give them thousands of dollars for CE, and then they're gone. So this will protect those licensees. The bill is agnostic on technology, so it can move with technology as it goes. The intention for right now is this will be integrated with a new goal system. Sorry, I'm a lot of breath still. Those stairs killed me at the end. So as we are in favor of this bill, it will help us do our work to get Georgians back to work more quickly, protect them, and give us 100% auditability of all the CEs, because right now we can only do 1% to 3%. This will give us 100% visibility into all the continuing education for each and every licensee. There.
And you're going to contract with a third party to do this monitoring?
Yes, sir.
Do you need the law to do that? Why don't you guys just go ahead and get a contract and let's get it on?
The Attorney General's office says in some cases we have to have a law to allow for this. So this is really a belt and suspenders thing. A couple of boards have done it without that, but that's the reason for the law as a belt and suspenders, to make sure we don't run into any issues later on.
Senator Albers, you're off the chain. Have at him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I always appreciate seeing Gabe, and first off, I just want to say thank you for you all investing and changing the current course, because it needed improvement, and I think you saw an opportunity to do that. My concern is, and not knowing exactly what the opinion was of the Attorney General, not being able to speak to it, is it's a precedent of what every other agency is going to be doing if we have to do a belt and suspenders cleanup on each one. I see no way possible in the law you can't do this right now. Clearly people have already done it, and I just hate to write law for no good reason. So I'll ask Sean Marie maybe a little bit later if we can talk to whoever in the AG's office gave that opinion, and we can look at it in detail. But I applaud you for the work you're doing.
Yeah.
I hate for us to constantly add more things to the OCGA for just doing what we should do as normal business.
You won't get an argument from me on that. However, in the particular case right now, in order for us to move forward, we're not in a position to argue with our attorney, the Attorney General, on this one. They've kind of come at us with this on a few of the different boards as we move forward. And there are several times when they've changed staff over there where some things will move occasionally by individual interpretation. We would prefer this. I think it's a cleaner way to do it. That way where there's no question. And I understand not wanting to clog the OCGA up, and I appreciate that. But like you said, we're trying to follow the path to make it a better system overall. And it was a 23-year-old system now that we're replacing that had a lot of bubble gum and baling wire holding it together. So we would appreciate your positive reception on this law, or this bill, as it moves forward. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to our office. Now, Senator Albers, I can talk to you separately if you have any other concerns.
Thank you.
Senator Gooch, you're recognized for a question.
I don't know how many licensees there are in the state. Do you have any rough idea?
It's approaching 600,000, but not all of them have continuing education, but the vast majority of them do.
So my point is, if you don't make this effective a year away, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to get trapped. They're not going to have the CEs. I think there may be a few people out there that may lie when they renew their license because they're not getting audited. If so, there's random audits. It's a small percentage. Am I correct?
It's 1% to 3% depending on the board, yes.
Right. So if we don't tell the licensees that this is coming and they don't have an opportunity to do their CEs before the bill becomes law and they re-up their license, they potentially could lose their license. So what do you think about an effective date, 6 months or a year out instead of immediately?
I have no strong argument against that to take care of those kinds of situations. I would hope that all of our good, hardworking Georgians aren't lying about their continuing education, but there will be a few of those that potentially could get caught on that. But they do have a year on this, and I think a cleaner thing to do than trying to pick a date and move things around is probably a later implementation date. We can start the implementation now, but maybe not have them have to lose their license during that transition period.
Yeah, I would hope you would think about that.
All right, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you all for the opportunity.
While I have this bill back before us here, Andrew Long, are you in the room? Andrew signed up, I think he was on the wrong sheet, wanted to be on solar bill, and Richard Lampton, I had you signed up on that 1096 as well. Did you need, you already spoke basically, okay. Fair enough. All right, thank you. All right, let me get you back up here, Representative Dempsey. You've got House Bill 839.
Thank you so much, once again, Chairman and members of the committee. So this is a social work licensure compact. The purpose is facilitate interstate practice of regulated social workers and improve public access to competent social work services, something that we are very short on and have a huge workforce need for in our state, from hospitals to private practices to schools to anything that touches mental health work, especially in families. Social workers are needed. The compact preserves the regulatory authority of our state and any other state that someone would practice in to protect public health and safety through the current system of licensure. Currently, there are 2 other states that have passed this. There are 7 states that are close. It requires 7 states to pass it, to be enacted, and there are 25 states with pending legislation just like this. The compact is designed to increase public access to social work services, reduce overly burdensome and duplicative requirements associating with holding multiple licenses if you wish to work across state lines, like Georgia's border cities particularly are very, very important to this work, from Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama. It enhances the member states' ability to protect our health and safety and encourages cooperation of member states in regulating multi-state practice. It promotes mobility in the workforce as well to address shortages where they might be occurring at any certain time. It particularly supports our military families, and this project is very much supported and funded through the Department of Defense. So it is to help those military families that move from state to state. Facilitate the exchange of licensure and disciplinary information among member states. It also authorizes all member states to hold a regulated social worker accountable for abiding by the member states' laws. That means what we do in Georgia is what they must do while practicing here. It also will allow the use of telehealth. There is a second measure that is added to this. That is the massage therapist compact as well. That was brought by Representative Houston Gaines, and the bills were put together to try to help both cross over. We do have someone who is more knowledgeable in that. If I could also let him come speak to y'all about that particular portion of the bill. Craig Knowles, he's the Georgia Board, he's the chair of the Georgia Board of Massage Therapy. Mr. Chairman, if that's a...
Questions for Representative Dempsey? All right, let's have Mr. Knowles come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Sorry for my attire. I found out about the meeting, came straight from work, so apologize for that. But yes, I am the Georgia Board of Massage Therapy Chair. I have been for the last 11 years. I am also the president of the Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards. I have been for the last 3 years. Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards is who got the grant from the Department of Defense to create this compact. I've been a massage therapist for 28 years here in Georgia, and I've been an educator for 24 years here in Georgia. I worked with the technical assisting group for the last 2 years to create the language for the massage therapy compact, so I was present for every single meeting. The compact has the same standards that the social worker compact would have, same framework, because again, it's made by the Council for State Governments, so it has the same framework that the other compacts that Georgia has already passed. For a state to be a part of the compact, it has to have 3 requirements. It has to license massage therapy, it has to have some type of continued competency piece like continuing education, and it has to require a national licensing exam. So Georgia already does these 3 things, so it's not an additional burden for the state. The additional part is that a licensee would need 625 hours of education to be able to take part in the compact itself. The 625-hour piece came from the entry-level analysis project. So all the associations got together, and there was over almost 22,000 response from the profession to create what the entry-level education should be. So that's where the 625 hours came from. Part of the state board, one of my responsibilities is I audit the massage schools in our state. We are a 500-hour minimum state, but 17 of our 20 massage schools already offer 600 or more hours, so it's not going to be a burden for them. We also have support letters from these schools that have been sent to the chairman's office. We also have support letters from the Association of Body Workers and Massage Practitioners that's also been sent to your office. The Commission on Massage Therapy Accreditation, they also support the 625 hours of education. As a professional regulator, I was a commissioner this year. I support the removal of red tape for our residents to get to work as fast as possible. And this legislation would actually solve 2 issues of portability as well as an extra layer of public protection. It also would not keep anyone from coming into our state because the 625 hours of education would be entry-level education as well as continuing ed. So if someone was coming, say, from a 500-hour state, then they could use continuing ed to help make up the additional hours that they may need. So it's not going to restrict anyone from coming into Georgia, and it would not restrict anyone from Georgia to go to another state.
Is your board in favor of the legislation?
Yes, sir.
I take it? All right.
100%.
Thank you for being with us.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. One last speaker, Wendy Clifton. Oh, I'm sorry, we have a question from the Dean of the Senate.
Briefly, regarding the Interstate Compact, if we pass this, would we be a charter member? And secondly, how many states have passed this Interstate Compact?
Yes, sir. The same requirements as 7 states to get the commission to start.
Charter, right.
1 state has already passed it. Many already have legislation out but haven't passed it just yet. We would be state number 2, and we would be part of that commission that would be able to create their.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Representative, we're not going to take action today, but I appreciate your presentation, and it looks like we're kind of on the cutting edge of states getting into these compacts. Representative Earhart, I am sorry, but there are a number of our committee members that had a 5 o'clock commitment, and we're not going to get to you. I was going as fast as we could, but you're going to be the first one up on the next meeting that is not CON. Now, I anticipate we're going to be hearing the Certificate of Need legislation on Thursday of this week, just as a heads up to our members in audience here. So it'll probably be next week when we circle back up, and you're going to see as old Jim Cramer calls, a lightning round again as we run through these bills. They're pretty well vetted at this point. If anybody has suggested changes to any of the bills we've heard today or can reach agreements on any type of proposed committee substitutes, please bring those to me this week so I can do some homework over the weekend and try to get us lined up to move some of these bills next week. Thank you so much. And Mr. Tony, I've got your handout, and now I got time to put it in the folders by the next meeting, so it'll probably help your advocacy here. Thank you so much. We are adjourned.